right, please stay seated for the national anthem, or Pledge of Allegiance, excuse me. I am not singing, okay.
Where's the flag? Oh, behind us. Here it is. Will.
Got you. All right.
There we go.
I pledge allegiance to the United States of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Good afternoon. How's everybody doing? Good. My name is Will, and I don't normally do this thing, so I'm going to do my best up here. But as a combat veteran in Afghanistan and an art teacher here in Waterloo, I've always loved and served my community. That call to duty and public service is something Joe Biden understands. Selflessly serving the community and giving voice to the defenseless his whole career. From securing voting rights, to standing up to violence against women, to securing affordable quality health care, every American deserves. Joe Biden's record speaks for itself. Yes, thank you. That commitment to call for duty runs deep in the Biden family. I had the privilege of meeting Bo twice, and we actually got lost in Waterloo one time. Like me, he served his country in the military was a patriot and a wonderful civil servant to the people of Delaware. The reason Joe and his family are such fierce and effective advocates is because they never forgot where they came from. They are compassionate and filled with empathy for their community that raised them. That's why Joe is still fighting, and that's the kind of heart that we need as a leader today. The fight, that fight is what keeps us hoping and believing in this country. After years of Osama bin Laden evading us, Vice President Biden and the Obama administration pressed on to bring him to justice. On the day Osama bin Laden was killed, I was serving in Afghanistan. We didn't have too many good days, but that was a good day. Thank you, Mr. Vice President, for your work in bringing the world's most wanted man to justice. It's on us to elect leaders who continue to fight fiercely for our country as Joe does. Very few leaders understand both foreign policy, how to go toe-to-toe with any adversary and win, and how to relate and to fight for everyday people like us here today. We need that kind of loyalty in our communities in the White House more than ever, and that's why we need Vice President Joe Biden. I'm proud today to introduce a fellow educator who has served her country as Second Lady, while continuing to teach a full slate of credits as a community college professor while she did it. Dr. Jill Biden understands the importance of making sure our kids are prepared from an early age with the educational tools they need to succeed. Let's make her our first lady in 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Jill Biden.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, really, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Will. I also want to say thank you for all that you've done for the students of Waterloo as an art teacher here. You know, I was teasing him just a few minutes ago. He's an art teacher, I'm an English teacher, but you know, the students love to go to his class. You know, they sign up for art. My classes, they have to be in, it's mandatory English. So Over the last few years, we've all talked about promoting STEM in our schools, but we're just beginning to embrace STEAM education and the critical role of the arts in engineering and innovation. I also have to thank both you and your family for your service to our nation. As a National Guard member, you've put your life on the line for all of us, and your family serves in its own way. Our nation is safer because of you, and I say thank you from the bottom of my heart. After the last presidential election, so many people started to come up to me in the grocery store, at events, on the street, and they all said the same thing. We miss Joe. Tell him to run. People said that they miss his statesmanship, his deep experience working with our allies around the world. They miss his decisive character, his kindness, his experience and ability to unite us. Joe inspires us to keep believing that our best days are ahead of us, never behind. And after Charlottesville, there was a new urgency to the words that people kept saying to me over and over again. We need Joe. He has to run. When we turn on the news today, we are told that we've never been so divided. We're told that our differences are irreconcilable and that there is a war between them and us. And we've certainly seen how hatred and bigotry have taken to the streets, torches in hand. Children being taken away from their parents at the border. Our progress slipping away. Women's rights, civil rights, our environment. So much is at stake. And yet, I believe that those who want to focus on division are wrong. When I travel across this nation, I see hope. I see people who care, people like you. I see communities coming together to stand beside each other, to lift each other up. That's the America that Joe Biden is fighting for. And just by being here, I know that you believe in that America too. In just a few years, so many of us have lost our faith in our institutions, in our politicians. Today, we have to choose a path forward, one of division or one of decency, one of optimism or one of fear. The consequences of these choices are enormous. They could change the path we take for years to come. And yet, it's the little miracles that restore my faith. Last weekend, I was in Boone and met community organizers who decided to run for office. Young people believing in a better tomorrow who moved to Iowa to work on the caucuses. Teachers giving $5 a month to make a difference. Volunteers giving their precious time to organize their precincts. People who reject outright cynicism and complacency that is so tempting at times. People like my husband, Joe Biden. Joe's faith in God, in our communities, in the boundless potential of the American ideal is unshakable. His faith is that we will never stop working to be greater, that our courage and our convictions will win out in the end if we are all united. Joe believes that together there is nothing that we cannot do. And that is why together, we must elect Joe Biden as our next president. So I want to end by saying thank you. Thank you for showing up. Thank you for caring. And thank you for your faith in an idea that is bigger than all of us, that we can build a better nation if we do it together. And now it's my pleasure to introduce Reverend Franz Whitfield. Dr. Whitfield has been the pastor of Mount Carmel for the last 12 years. Obviously, that child loves Dr. Whitfield. But he's been in the ministry much longer than that, 23 years, in fact. He likes to say that while his friends were on the playground outside, he was in his room writing sermons. Since his teens, he's answered a calling. He's a leader within the church and outside of it as well. Through his activism, his outspokenness, and his work in this community, he reminds us of the truth we find in the Gospel of James. Faith without works is dead. Please help me to welcome Reverend Dr. Franz Whitfield.
Everybody, let's give Dr. Biden another hand. I first of all want to say this is such an honor to be here tonight to see all of you, and I want to recognize the great mayor of our city of Waterloo tonight, Mayor Quentin Hart. Let's give Mayor Hart a hand. Who's been doing a marvelous job running our city, and I think I ought to throw in there that he's running for re-election as well. So we need some money for this campaign, so please see him. And then to our Black Hawk County Democratic Chair, Miss Vicki Brown. Let's give her a hand tonight also. And to all of our elected officials who are here this evening, it is an honor tonight to stand and to introduce the Vice President, former Vice President of the United States, Joe Biden. And let me say tonight before I begin my speech that I am excited to share with everyone tonight that I am officially endorsing Joe Biden for President of the United States. As Dr. Biden has stated, I have been preaching for 23 years. This July 23rd will be 23 years I've been preaching, and have been preaching since the age of 13 years old. And besides that, one of my greatest passions and loves is that I'm blessed to be the pastor of Mount Carmel Baptist Church here in Waterloo, Iowa, which is a congregation that historically takes its role in choosing the next leaders of our country very seriously. It is through that calling and our community's commitment to service that I first met Joe Biden. I was also committed fully to my ministry, but his run with now President Barack Obama inspired me to get involved in politics for the first time. As a faith advisor to both President Obama and Vice President Biden, first on the campaign trail and then throughout their administration, I saw during my time as a faith advisor something truly unique in American politics and for our community. I saw two leaders in President Obama and Vice President Biden that not only understood policy, but also had a deep understanding and empathy for the struggles and the blessings of communities like ours here in Waterloo. That innate compassion and that wisdom yielded results that got to the heart of what families and communities like ours need to not just survive, but to thrive. Their landmark legislation, the Affordable Care Act, helped guard against discrimination for those with pre-existing conditions, helped guarantee that no matter who you are, no matter where you come from or what your ailment is, you can receive quality, affordable health care. And I must say tonight that that's the kind of heart and leadership that our country needs today. We are badly fractured. Families are living in fear. If they get sick, if they'll get their retirement benefits cut, if we go to war and the government shuts down. Our communities work hard, not just in their jobs, but to be decent and kind neighbors to one another every day. We deserve leadership that views being a steward of our government in the same way. We can restore decency, compassion, dignity to the White House, and Joe Biden would do just that. Joe Biden knows. Joe Biden knows that when you give ordinary Americans a fighting chance, they do extraordinary things. In closing, Harriet Tubman quotes the following. She says that every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember that you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world. Waterloo, I must say tonight that I have a dream. I have a dream that one day as an African-American man that I'll be able to drive down the streets without fear of dying at the hands of a police officer. I have a dream tonight like Dr. King. I have a dream that one day people will not have to work 2 and 3 jobs just to make ends meet. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day husbands and wives won't have to choose who takes their prescription drugs all because they cannot afford them at the same time. I have a dream today. I also have a dream that one day the American people will not be turned away due to color, due to religion, due to background, and due to sex. I have a dream tonight. And lastly, I have a dream that one day I'll be able to go to Washington and drive past 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue and see Donald Trump packing his bags and moving out of the White House. And I want to know tonight, I want to know tonight, do you dream that same dream with me? Well, Waterloo, there's a man that has the same dream that as I do, and that man will bring this great country that we call America back to its rightful place. And so if you're not standing on your feet, I want you to stand on your feet tonight and welcome the next president of the United States, Mr. Joe Biden.
It's good to see so many familiar faces. Doctor, thank you very, very much for your endorsement, for your passion, for what you've done, for being there for Barack and me when we were in the White House. And I have a dream that Waterloo is going to be Trump's Waterloo. It's so good to be back. I tell you what, so many familiar faces and so many friends. I want to say thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you for the passport letting me into town. Appreciate it very much. I complimented the mayor on how well he ties his bow tie, and he said, you know, this is the home of the clip-on bow tie. I didn't know that. I apologize. Madam Chair, thank you very much. So all my friends, elected officials who have been introduced and many who haven't been introduced, and retired firefighter and veteran Tom Powers. Where are you, Tommy? There you are. You're an old friend, man, and I really appreciate you being here tonight. And folks, I just want you to know that when we came in, when I met Will, I want to tell you one of the most meaningful moments of my career was I've been in and out of Afghanistan and Iraq well over 30 times. And Iraq is tough, and Afghanistan's just a God-forsaken place. It's a 14th century area. They're good people, but it is so stark and primitive. And I've been up in the highlands there. I've been up where he has been, and I want to tell you what people understand now, unlike the Vietnam War, is they've come to understand the incredible sacrifice you and so many others made, and I really mean it, Will. As I said, it's one of the most meaningful things to us, to Jill and I, was Barack and I we thought we knew the whereabouts of Osama bin Laden all the way as early as September. And there was a meticulous plan being put in place by the SEALs and others to how we're going to get in and out. And the night that the president, and by the way, you want to watch a woman or man and get respect for them, watch them under incredible pressure, incredible threat. Imagine had that not been him, imagine had we not gotten him, if the president put his presidency on the line. And when we stood there at the White House and he made that announcement, and he and I spent a little time together, and I came home, the Secret Service drove me back to the Vice President's residence. And it was a lovely night. And as I got to the front porch, it's an old Victorian home, it's a lovely place, and I got to the front door, Jill was sitting there waiting for me in a bathrobe. And her tears coming down her eyes. Outside our home, somewhere between 500 and 1,000 people were singing God Bless America. It was one of those moments. And thanks for mentioning our Bo. A number of you mentioned Bo to me today, and it means a lot to Jill and to me. He was a wonderful, decent, honorable man. He spent some time in Kosovo, trying to help them put together, in the middle of the war, a legal system. As a matter of fact, Bo, I'm going to, excuse me for, as we used to say in the Senate, a point of personal privilege, brag about him a little bit. He's the only foreign person that has a war memorial dedicated to him in Kosovo. And the first major highway that they ran is called the Joseph R. Bo Biden Highway. And and after a year in Iraq, he came back and as a decorated soldier, and proudest moment of his life was putting on that uniform. Look, again, I apologize for the diversion, but I couldn't fail to mention it. You know, it's great to be back. I promised you, you'll be seeing a lot of me. The bad news is I'm keeping that promise. You're going to hear a lot. And I can't think of any better way to celebrate our nation's, the day before our 243rd anniversary of American independence, and spending time with the voters of Iowa, who you really do take seriously your democratic responsibilities. Because the issues that matter to Iowa are the very issues that matter to all of America. And I'm running for president to be very straightforward for 3 reasons. One, to restore the soul of our nation. And two, to rebuild the backbone of the nation, the middle class, the hard-working people. Poor folks are getting poorer, and the middle class is beginning to shrink. And we have to change it, because that's who built the country. And thirdly, to unite the nation. I know it's not very much in vogue to talk about uniting the nation, but without a united country, there's not much we can get done. We all know in our gut that this election is different than any of us have faced, no matter how young or old you are. We saw what happened, as Jill obliquely referenced, in Charlottesville. And I said at the time that we are in a battle for the soul of America. And I believe that even more today. We can overcome 4 years of this president. But if we give Donald Trump 8 years in the White House, I believe he'll forever and fundamentally change the character of this nation. And we can't let that happen. And folks, as I said to a few people earlier, I hope I'm your nominee. I hope you consider me to be your nominee and vote for me in caucus. But whether I am or not, I commit to you I will do everything in my power, whomever the nominee is, to see that Donald Trump is not reelected. Folks, Donald Trump's gone out of his way to break the back of the middle class in this country. This country wasn't built by Wall Street and bankers and CEOs or hedge fund managers. It was built by ordinary people, like where you and I come from. Ordinary people, literally, not figuratively, being able to do extraordinary things. Thing you and I and Joe used to talk about. Joe Sang, I'm referring to here, an old friend. Things that, in fact, there's nothing we can't do. There's a time when we rebuild, this time we rebuild the middle class. We've got to bring everybody along, though. Everybody's got to come. No matter your race, your gender, your ethnicity, your religion, who you love, where you live, or what disability you may or may not have. You know, my dad used to have an expression. He said, Joey, a job's about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about your dignity. It's about respect. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your child in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. But so few people think they can do that today. The middle class is shrinking. We're no longer the wealthiest middle class. And you have a majority saying their children will not do as well as they did. And by the way, my dad used the word often, dignity. Dignity. How can someone maintain their dignity if they can't afford to care for a child or a family member who has a pre-existing condition? You all are parents, you know, or grandparents. How can you maintain your dignity when you look at your child in need and you can't do anything about it? How can you maintain your dignity when you have a son, daughter, husband, wife, brother, sister who's diagnosed with a terminal disease, knowing they only have months to live, and the insurance company come along and say, no, your time's up. Suffer in sympathy, but we're not covering you anymore. I can't imagine that that had been done when our son Bo. That's okay, don't worry. Don't worry, I'm so serious. Children, I love to hear them. But folks, look, if you know, when Bo was lying there in pain, if someone came along, we were worried about his wife and his children, our grandchildren. I don't know what in God's name I would have done. And they said, no. The last 4 months after he came home from Iraq, he survived for a year. But I'm sorry. Deal with this. You know, there used to be a basic bargain in America. And I see my friends, the firefighters and the TCU and union members across the board here and ordinary working people. You know, there used to be a basic bargain. If you helped create the success of the enterprise with which you worked, you got to share in the benefits. For real. That was an idea that everybody, including Republicans, disagreed with how much we do, but they thought that if you're a part of the success, you got to share in the profit. Because you're sharing the devil, sharing the loss when things don't work. But folks, the fact of the matter is that bargain has been ripped apart by this administration. That bargain's been broken. We have to start rewarding work over wealth. We have to begin to restore some dignity to work. How can the farmers and union workers right here in Waterloo maintain their dignity with the policies Donald Trump is following on trade? America's farmers have been crushed by this president's tariff war with China. And no one knows that better than the folks in Iowa. He thinks that being tough, he's being tough. Well, it's pretty easy to be tough when it doesn't hurt you at all and only hurts somebody else. How many, and I'm sure you know, how many farmers you know across this state and this nation who had to face the prospect of losing their business, losing their farm because of Trump's tariffs? It's just impacting farmers. It ripples through the entire economy, hitting industries that support agriculture, hurting organized labor, costing consumers more in everyday household goods. What's going to happen in Waterloo's John Deere plants if the farmers aren't investing in new equipment because they're not sure they're going to have a harvest next year? What happens then? What happens? Or if China will be available for their market to buy their soybeans, in my state as well, which is a large agricultural state. Trump's tariffs on trade wars are hitting a lot of American manufacturing, especially the American automobile industry. I don't have to tell anybody here in this UAW hall about that. You know, look, we're in a competition with China, and we need to get tough with China. But there are serious challenges for us. In some areas, they're a real threat. But look, every single step this president has taken in dealing with China has exacerbated the challenge, has made it worse. While Trump is tweeting from the 75th anniversary on Normandy Beach about some movie actress or something, seriously, China is making massive investments in technologies of the future. While Trump is name-calling, China is building roads, bridges, high-speed rail, investing billions of dollars. While Trump is pursuing a damaging and erratic trade war without any strategy, by the way, China is positioning itself to lead the world in renewable energy that will export to the rest of the world, creating millions, thousands of jobs. While Trump's attacking our friends, China is pressing their advantage all over the world. So yeah, I'm worried about China. If we keep following this president's path, we can outcompete anyone, though, if we invest in ourselves. That's why I propose a historic initiative on scientific research, cutting-edge infrastructure. We'll create literally 10 million good-paying middle-class jobs, a modern workforce that will help American workers and entrepreneurs compete and win with anyone in the world. But time and again, on issue after issue, Trump makes the wrong choices. On health care. On health care. He tried to take it away, Obamacare. Folks, we've got to finish this job on health care. The Affordable Care Act was a huge step forward. There were scores of presidents beforehand who tried to do it. Barack Obama was the only guy to get it done, period, without one Republican vote. You have to remember, I'm glad my mom went, but I told the president it was a big deal, or words to that effect. But look, I want to stop here and say something about my buddy. You know, I think Doc saw up close, not only are Barack and I become friends, we worked together, but we became very close friends. And our families became close friends. As a matter of fact, my number 2 granddaughter is with his eldest daughter, and they're both out in California hanging out together at a friend's house. But here's the deal. We don't say it often enough. Barack Obama was a man of extraordinary character and decency. He was a president. He was a president our kids could look up to. He was a great president. And I was proud to serve 8 years with him, but none more than the day that, in fact, we passed the Affordable Care Act. Now we have to finish the job and make health care a right, not a privilege. Give everyone the peace of mind they deserve. I remember sometimes when my dad was restless, my mom would say, because our rooms are next to one another, I'd say, the next morning, what's wrong? She said, your dad can't sleep. He's just staring at the ceiling thinking, what happens? He switched jobs. He has no insurance. What happens? What happens if one of us gets sick? Building on Obamacare means that we have to bring everyone along, and we can't start over. There's no time to start over, in my view. Building on what we've done, not starting over, allowing people to keep their employer-based insurance or their private insurance or any insurance they have if they want. But if they don't, allowing them the ability to buy into a public option, health care plan like Medicare. Look, we have to take advantage of this. And I want to be very blunt with you. It's going to be a big debate among us all in this race. There's a lot of good people running. But I fundamentally disagree with anyone who says scrap Obamacare. I'm against any Republican who wants to scrap it. I'm against any Democrat who wants to scrap it. It's the place from which to build. So look, take climate. We've had devastating floods across America, including right here in Iowa. Still, Trump denies it. And by the way, he says all those windmills and the thousands of people you put to work, they cause cancer. Bless me, Father. I mean, I shouldn't even get started. But look, folks, it was one of the first things he did. He pulled out of the Paris Climate Accord, which Barack and I helped put together. 197 nations, not 96 nations. Look, folks, we need to do everything in our power to confront the climate threat. That's why I'm proposing we invest $400 billion in clean energy research to accelerate innovation. Partnering with farmers and ranchers to develop the next generation of biofuels, and working with farmers on cover crops to capture carbon in the soil and paying them to do it. Folks, building the clean energy infrastructure with nationwide network of charging stations, over 500,000 by 2030. We can do this. It's within our wheelhouse. We can become the leader in electronic vehicles in the world. And if you doubt it, just go to any big city and look at all those scooters, man. They plug. Not a joke. Not a joke. So folks, look, putting America on a course to becoming a net zero emitter and total clean economy and clean energy by 2050. But in order to restore the dignity, we need to make our education system work as well. Let's start. By the way, does anybody think 12 years is enough for your kid to make in the middle class in the 21st century? Everybody knows that's not true. So what are we doing? What are we doing? I admit my plan is a little more ambitious than others, but we can afford it. I start by tripling the funding for Title I schools, that's schools in disadvantaged areas, from $15 to $45 billion. That'll make it possible to provide universal pre-K, increase teachers' pay, eliminate the disparities between poor and wealthy districts. You know, we have, I think the number, don't hold me the exact number, but for every school psychologist, there's like 1,700 kids. Teachers are overwhelmed by what's coming home, from home. We need to have pre-K, universal pre-K. We've got to be in a position where we are going into communities to help communities and single parents. Folks, the idea we're giving these we have $1.6 trillion in tax expenditures, tax loopholes out there. You can't justify, there's $500 to $700 billion you can't even begin to justify. And guess what? If we gave every single parent who had a kid in daycare, and I was a single parent for 5 years, and I made a good salary. I was a United States Senator making $42,000 a year at the time. That was a lot of money for most people. And I had family helping me. But try hiring someone on to help take care of your kids. In a major city, it runs about between $20,000 and $25,000 a year to get competent care. Yeah, we can give tax breaks for owning racehorses and a lot of other things. Why in God's name, if we gave an $8,000 tax credit for everyone having a child, in fact, under school year age, we would be in a position where we'd put 750,000 women back to work. We'd increase the gross domestic product, according to the econometric models, by close to 0.8% a year. What are we doing? They call us not the party of progress and not the party of growth. My Lord. Ladies and gentlemen, you know, we know there's as much talent and ingenuity in rural communities as there is in metropolitan communities. Poor communities of color, as well as rich communities and rich neighborhoods. But it takes opportunity, exposure. A significant part of a child's brain is developed by the time they're 4 years old. Imagine what happens if we prepare them better. They go to school from a middle class or upper middle class house, having heard, the estimates are, as many as 4 million more words spoken. And you tell me they're not at a disadvantage? And by the way, the idea that the president asked me to do a study for him on jobs of the future, right now today, and we did that, it took a year. Right now today, 65 out of 100 jobs need something beyond a high school degree. Either a certificate, an apprenticeship, a job training program, community college. Folks, what are we doing? We should be investing in our children instead of investing in his tax cuts. I want to make clear to you, if I'm elected President of the United States, goodbye Trump tax cuts for the super wealthy. Goodbye. We can do it. And folks, as I said, there's so many loopholes that aren't justified. Let me give you one example. We can cut the cost of half in college for qualified students, right across the board. If we provide free community college for every single person who qualified for community college, you're going back to school, because like Jill teaches, the average age of her class is like 28, 29 years of age, or going from high school. You know how much it costs? It costs a lot of money. It costs $6 billion a year. That's a lot of money, man. But it would increase the gross domestic product by 0.2%. But here's the deal. We eliminate one tax cut. I hope you all know what it was. I never knew what it was, being listed as the poorest guy in Congress for a while. And that is called stepped-up basis. You make your capital gain. You go to cash it in. God forbid, as you cash it in, you get hit by a truck, gets left to your son or daughter, they pay nothing. Out of the $1.640 billion in expenditures, that's only $17 billion. 17. Eliminate that one. You can send every single college kid that qualifies for school and cut their cost in half, because if you go to a community college, you can go to the university, state university in every single state. It's mindless. It's mindless what we're doing. And folks, the bottom line is we got to start rewarding work over wealth, because that's how we do it now. You know, I got to be blunt with you. I'm a union guy. I don't just say labor, I know how to pronounce the word union. Because here's the deal, guys. Unions are the ones that built the middle class. I know it and you know it. Look, labor is why even those who never belong to labor have the benefits they have. Labor is the reason why we got a 40-hour week. Labor is the reason why there's overtime pay. Labor is the reason why work conditions are, et cetera. But folks, look what's happened. They've been banging down labor for a long time. We have to be doing everything to try to help restore the notion of collective bargaining, not restricted. And one more thing. I know I'm going too long, but look, one more thing. This outfit in office now has not just been out to crush labor for the last, well, it's been going on for a while now. But it's about limiting the ability of individuals to bargain for their worth. You realize that 40% of all workers are out there are going to have to sign a non-compete agreement sometime in their career. Now that makes sense if you're in a high-tech outfit and you're going to go to another one and you have to, trade secrets, all those things. But up until I started talking about this, Jimmy John's, if you made sandwiches Jimmy John's, you couldn't go across town, literally, and try to get 10 cents more working for McDonald's. Not a joke. Now what's that about other than just suppressing wages? It has nothing to do with anything. Look what's going on, what they're doing in terms of overtime. If you're an hourly worker, under the law, you're entitled to be paid overtime. But they're reclassifying people as management. for the minorest thing, the smallest things. You're stacking ragu spaghetti on a grocery shelf, and you control the guy or the woman who runs the cart. You're now management. You know what that cost? That cost American workers $1.4 billion last year. $1.4 billion reclassification cost them last year. It's wrong. And so, folks, look, Donald Trump threatens everything. Our core values, what we stand for, what we believe. And I made the decision to run for president when Donald Trump called white supremacists and neo-Nazis and Ku Klux Klan very fine people. No president has ever done that, Republican or Democrat. When those folks came crawling out under rocks, carrying torches, their veins bulging, and a young woman was killed, her murderer just got convicted and sentenced 3-4 days ago. What happened? He said, very fine people on both sides. Look, folks, he's wrong. Hate has no place in America. It's time. It's time we celebrate and restore the American creed. We haven't always lived up to it. We've never walked away from all men are created equal, all men and women are created equal. We, the people, we hold these truths. But everywhere we turn, Trump is shredding what we believe most. You know, we have to restore those basic values of, regain our footing, restore our soul. For me, it's the only way America is going to have a future. Everywhere you turn, Donald Trump is tearing down the guardrails of our democracy and abusing power. And if there's one thing I can't stand, and I suspect all of you, because I know Iowa pretty well, is the abuse of power. Whether it's in the workplace, whether it's a man raising his hand to a woman, or whether it's treating their employees like dirt. This guy has no respect for the rule of law. I can't stand it. Fake news, enemy of the people. These are words we used to laugh at and dismiss because we didn't think, but guess what? It's taking root. It's impacting on everything. His goal is simple. Discredit the news, discredit the free press, discredit the courts. He ruled against me because his father's Mexican. Seriously. You know, he's trying to run roughshod over the constraints on him. He's looking to tear down the constraints the courts have put on him. And it's gone well beyond the attack to a full-range attack on our law enforcement agencies. Sheriff, you ever heard anybody? I don't get you in trouble. I take that back. Anyone in law enforcement, you ever heard a President of the United States talk about law enforcement like he does today? I oversaw, as the chairman of the Judiciary Committee a long time, the FBI. Look what he talks about. He stands up in front of the whole world at a meeting a year ago and again last week and takes Vladimir Putin's word over all of our intelligence agencies. I guarantee you, Putin has interfered in our democracy and tried to alter our elections, and he's still doing it. And you saw what Trump said the other day to him. You're not going to do that again, are you? As if it's a big joke. Ladies and gentlemen, he is deliberately and completely ignoring the legitimate authority of the Congress, and he's doing what he does with the complicity of congressmen who know better. You know, we're at a moment when we need to reset our constitutional norms. The presidency is not without limits. As a matter of fact, it has clear limits in our Constitution. Congress is a co-equal branch. And there's some in our party who say the response we have is when we get elected, ram through the same way even if we can't get the votes exactly what he did. Abuse that power. Folks, as much as that temptation is real, we cannot do it. I know our government sometimes is like a knife fight. You have to keep up and you have to fight sometimes alone, like we did in healthcare. But this can't be a permanent state of mind. Oh yeah, you know, I'll look to work with Congress, work across the aisle to find some consensus. But I'm not naive. It's not some old-fashioned way of doing things that no longer exist. It's the only way our system is supposed to work. And by the way, We'll rue the day that we decide to walk away from the fundamentals of our American democracy. And by the way, when you disagree and you can't get their votes, go out and beat them. Beat them. That's what we did in 2018. We beat them. I went into over 69 races. And when I said to the press, we're going to win back the House of Representatives, they said I was crazy. We won back the House of Representatives because we took them on, straight up, on health care. You didn't see a whole lot of Republicans run around saying, no, I want to do away with pre-existing conditions being covered. They're all tripping over themselves, not telling the truth about how they're going to provide health care. Folks, for all our problems, I'm more optimistic today when I got elected as a 29-year-old kid to the Senate. And here's why. We're better positioned than any nation in the world to own the 21st century. We have the strongest military in the history of the world. But we lead not only by the example of our power, but the power of our example. That's why the rest of the world has followed us. That's why we've been able to put together since World War II the most significant alliances in the history of the world. North America is energy independent. The United States has the best research more great research universities starting from Iowa around the country than all the rest of the world combined. That's where every earth-shaking idea has come from and monetized by corporations. The only thing that can tear America apart, and Jill referenced it earlier, is America itself. Folks, this is the 4th of July, the eve of it. So it's time, I think, we pick up our heads. Remember who in God's name we are. This is the United States of America. There's not a single thing we cannot do together. Everybody remembers having learned, even my grandkids now, having learned John Kennedy's speech about going to the moon. There's one line in that speech that I remembered then, and I've remembered my whole career. It's been a guiding light. He said, why are we going? He said, because we refuse to postpone. I refuse to postpone any longer. God bless you all, and may God protect our troops. Thank you, thank you, thank you.